Hello, 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 good people, and welcome to Happy Healthy Whole. It is Wednesday, um, Wisdom, which is dedicated to small businesses and just giving some tips that can help you to navigate your actual growth and engagement of your clients. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. Today we're talking client retention strategies. How do you get the client, and then how do you keep the client? And so, as I've said before, I try to keep these 10 minutes or less, but I've been going over. So let's see if I can stay in these 10 minutes. If you're here live with me, feel free to talk in the chat because I have it open today finally. I'm getting more consistent. Wednesdays, wisdom is something that I really wanted to dedicate or get started on in this part of the season going into the new year, because I do want to kind of keep some legacy work where I'm giving away what I know to those who are starting new businesses, because I've been able to successfully have a business now for over 8 years and, oh gosh, almost nine, depending on which portion of the business. Anyway, that being said, hello everyone and welcome to Happy Healthy Whole. Let me just get started and get all off this talking box and get right to, this is how we get over the 10 minutes that I promised. Client retention strategies, keeping clients interested, engaged, and satisfied. I am reestablishing my relationship with social media. So I figured this is going to be that opportunity to tell you what has worked and even just taking a break and seeing the difference in what doesn't work, right? And so I am a small business owner that specializes specifically in racial equity, trauma-informed, and employee wellness consultation and therapy services. So I do both of those things under my business. So we're going to dive into the topic that is crucial to not just my success, for any business success, which is that client retention process, the key to keeping a client satisfied and engaged. Retaining clients isn't as easy as it has been in the past because we have a million and one people doing similar services, and or we have a lot of different marketing tools and people saturating our industries, which means that we have to show up very sincerely ourselves, but also prepared to be consistent. And so it's about creating an ongoing relationship, not just a moment or instant gratification so you can get the sale and then get out of there. So that ongoing relationship is what I've been able to learn to master in my business, because it is something that as an introvert, I've had to learn how to do it while still maintaining some of my energy. So I'm going to try to give you 3 tips when I'm doing these, or really 3 points or 3 tips around this area to try to really engage your business, engage your clients specifically, stay connected, and get your business name out there, because you are your business. And that's just the reality of having to be a small business owner. Most of us as consultation or the consultants or therapists need to be very clear that a strategy that does not have you in it is going to make it much harder for people to buy in and connect with you. So we're going to discuss building lasting relationships with clients, which is something that I've learned to do really well as ensuring that you stay loyal and engaged over the long term. Because when you aren't consistent, your client doesn't feel connected in a way that is about an emotional connection, as well as a business trusting connection. So let's start with the one of the simplest yet maybe the most powerful client retention, which is regular follow-up. You have to follow up. That sounds so simple, but after sessions or consultation, it is easy for things to get back to work or you get busy with a bunch of things. But the follow-up is where you really solidify the client's relationship. So things like when someone calls in for a service, how are you calling back? What is your email response time? How many email sequences do you have ready for that follow-up? And so it looks different depending on the type of work you're doing. So let me just give you some examples. So following up, so for me, following up for a consultation client is that initial contact, what might be they reached out or I reached out to them, they were connected by a previous client, whatever the case is, and the initial contact is made. The follow-up requires me to be engaged and to be very clear that because they're asking for my service, I want to stay on the top of their mind, which is what you're going to try to do when it comes to your follow-up. So thinking about it from the perspective of if you are giving one email, your response should be at least 24 to 48 hours, email responding back to them saying it was a pleasure meeting you. I enjoyed our consultation. Here's a little follow-up summary of what we talked about in the consultation. And I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and how we can work together moving forward. That's just a follow-up email just after the session that we might have had around a consultation. That's an example for a consultant client. But for a therapy client, it's just as important. They come in for consultation, they're nervous, they're asking you questions about, what's your approach, what's your interventions, what can you offer them according to the issue or the problem that they presented to you. And so follow-up might be very similar, an email stating, I know we had our 15-minute follow-up or our 15-minute consultation. I just wanted to check back in to let you know that if you're ready to schedule, we can schedule next week, giving the date that we may have talked about in the session. And that if not, I'd love to offer you some referrals to other therapists that also might be able to support your need. And what I'm doing there is I'm building trust, but I'm also being okay with if they don't choose me, because I want them to be able to see or create the relationship that they need with their therapist. For me specifically, I don't believe that everyone fits with every therapist. So I may not be a fit, but I also still feel like if they came to me, they needed help, I want to be able to offer them some type of resource, even if it's not myself. And so that's what happens in my follow-up for therapy. And so following up shows that you care about the client's progress and you are invested in their success. So for example, that I use for the consultation with the therapist, I'm offering the time and the date and the possibility of a different referral if I'm not the fit. For the consultation, I'm offering a thank you, enjoyed your issues, summary of the notes that we talked about, and when we can start working together. And so needed to mention that I also in there will have my follow-up steps for what's next. And so then that becomes this process of investing in their success while at the same time letting them know that they're seen and connected with you and that there's a progress that they can make with you as their therapist or their consultant. It could be as simple as sending that quick email. In some cases, it could be a text, depending on the type of services you have for your clients. And then for other times, it may be an additional lunch or making a networking opportunity. So it may not be that you are going to do the full consultation, but it's some level of follow-up that says, I've heard you have an issue. I'm the person to help you solve it. If I can be of assistance, here's how I can do that. And so really what that does is it allows your client to say, hey, I appreciate the follow-up. I know that they are interested in helping me. And now I can either get the help I need or I can get for consultation, I can use the next step. Or if I'm a therapist, I can get the help I need here or somewhere else based off of their referrals, which gives them the opportunity to still get the help they need. And because most of the individuals that I work with, be individuals or organizations, are helping services, I try to encourage people to know that they may not need to have me as their therapist or their consultant, but if I can refer or give other referrals, I'll do that just the same. Remember, it's not just about the service you provide. During the actual sessions when they become clients, it's about your continued support and response to their needs after. And so this ongoing follow-up even continues once the client becomes a client. So that was my initial contact email. But even with my clients, when they're a therapy client, they get a email reminder the day before reminding you that their appointment is 24 hours out. If they need to cancel, now is the time to do so, because if not, they'll be charged our no-show rate or not late cancellation rate for less than 24 hours. So it's a courtesy of following up and also making them aware that we still know and want to make sure that we don't have the conflict of you having to pay, but we also still run a business, right? And so it's the follow-up, but it's also the consistency that says, we see you, we know that your schedule is just as important as ours, but when you have the opportunity to make sure you can follow up. For my consultation clients, they get the same they get a different, obviously it's different information in it, but they get a 24-hour notice for their appointments, the same as well, indicating if they cancel to let us know within this 24 hours. And also usually has a bullet point agenda for what we're going to meet about the following day, depending on the type of service. Is it leadership coaching is one email. If it's consultation around audits for equity and employee wellness is another email. If it's crisis consultations for emergency services with employee wellness or group debriefings, it's another email, right? And so all of these things are ways to follow up, but they're also engaging and very specific to the client who's in front of me versus giving everyone the same generic email that might be about making sure you're here in 24 hours versus giving each type of service a specific email, and then that client that falls under that type of service receives that email. And so just being able to kind of build that trust and encourage them to continue working with you is also a way for clients to feel, you know, somewhat safe, but also consistency and engaged in their journey with you. And so those are just the tips under follow-up. So that's the first thing. Making sure that you've mastered your follow-up game is going to be extremely important. There's no way I'm going to stay under 10 minutes. I apologize. It's just, I got to stop making that promise to myself, because if you're here, you're here. And if not, you'll get to watch back according to what you need out of this, out of these series, in terms of Wellness Wednesdays or Wednesday Wisdom. My bad. It's W things tricky. Anyway, so our next point is, so now we talked about follow-up. The next point is providing value beyond the session. What that means for each person is different. Your client comes to you for your expertise, so you're going to know what it means to give value beyond the session. Why not continue to share your knowledge, even in a sense, what you're good at and how you do it with them when they're even not in the room with you? So for example, this could be things like newsletters, webinars, a simple blog post that indicates that your website is active or your actual area of expertise, you're active in it, so that way they can get those points. So a good way to do this for your clients who are so for me, I have a certain number of consultation clients I can hold with our staff ratio that I like to provide. And then I have a certain number of therapy clients, which are really just my long-term clients that might be specific to trauma, right? So what I send out to my consultation clients is really about a newsletter related to leadership, inclusive leadership, and in terms of emotional intelligence. Some of the articles that I might write for NASW, I'll make sure that either I link it to them or encourage them to become a member of NASW so that they can see my work under the leadership area. So I'm giving them the snippets of continuing to see me as an expert. And I'm also doing it specific to maybe areas that we are talking about. So for example, I recently had a meeting with my own coach. And so I'm looking for a new accountant. And what that means, I needed some help with time-wise. And also I needed a second eye. And so one of the things that, because he also likes to follow up, gives me information about what additional things he can do, he actually gave me a list of specific consultants in my area who work with my local chamber's business chamber, because he wanted me to get networking, but at the same time, he also know that I am going to need a new accountant related to certain areas of our business growth. And so that is an example of giving more oomph after, right? So he is going to give me these three, and there's a list of 20, and then he picked out 3 that he reviewed that would be very specific to the areas that my business works in and what he knows that we're doing related to goals. That's giving more bang for your buck after the session, because yes, we're still going to have our monthly meeting. But what he's also showing is that I think about your business when you're not around. And I know that because you're in the process of developing a new leadership role, you are going to need a little bit of leadership support. So here entails how I can do that as your coach. And so just that simple list of 20 people and then starring 3, giving me an indication of what 3 he reviewed that fit the business for me is an example. And that becomes priceless, because now when I'm back in my meeting, I want to make sure I call those accountants before I see him. I'm going to be actively trying to make sure that I'm engaged with my coach myself the same way I would do that with my own clients. And so what are you giving as your expertise outside of the sessions? Think about it. Think about so for a therapy client, let me just give an example for a therapy client, because we do both services. For a therapy client, that could be homework. That could be reviewing videos or posts that are wellness specific to their issues. For myself, I love creating and giving away journals to my clients, and they get them for free if they're seeing us, or if they're part of our actual clientele. And so what I usually will do is say, hey, there's a journal that is specific on self-love. I'm going to make sure that next session when you're here, I send it to your home if we're virtual, or if I'll make sure it's a copy here for you so that we can start our work while we're also doing this work. So that's out of the session work that they can use. The same can be for homework, worksheets, podcasts or videos that you might recommend that they watch, or reading books that they might, or books they might recommend. And so for me, I try to give a variety of tips, tools, or resources that can be provided to support their journey. And really, when we think about it as a therapist specifically, there's so many great things that you can do that can support your client, but also get you, go back to that engagement, get you also recognized when we think about resonating with our clients and our brand. You can do things like mindfulness videos and send them to your social media, and or if you have private a private community, ask them to come into that community and you're doing mindfulness exercises, all kinds of stress management tools that you might be doing specific to that group. If you're a consultant, you offer industry trends, things like practical advice, emails and blog posts and articles that you may have written. So you really want to center it around what the client need is and what kind of resources you can offer them outside of the session. This is going to be true for any of our types of wellness services. So even I can do the same thing for, say, a person who does massages. You might want to offer essential oils. You might want to offer journals that are about engaging in touch and learning how to encourage your body to be one, connect with your mind, body, and soul, right? So you're going to find ways to give resources that might give more encouragement for them to want to do something around your services. So think, what can I offer outside of the session? Providing that extra value is priceless. The reason why it's priceless is because it only helps your client stay positioned and connected to you. It helps them to believe and to know that you're the resource that is going to work for them. So it's engaging and it reinforces your skill. That's pretty much an awesome opportunity. And for me personally, that's also my Monday videos here on Happy, Healthy, Whole, which is really very specific, or Freedom to Shine is what it still says on the thing some days. But really what that does is it allows for them to see points and quick tips around areas of emotional wellness. And so really thinking, how can I stay engaged beyond the session? So lastly, engaging and engagement for your process is, and I hope this is going to make sense because each of us have different ways of doing this. But lastly, you're going to gather client feedback. No matter how experienced you are, how much an expert you are, there's always room to grow. When we think about growth and growing, we have to be able to know how to receive feedback, but also accept critiques in areas that we could improve for better guidance and growth with our clients. And so think about this from the perspective of online survey platforms where you can actually create a feedback form related to your different services, encourage your clients to share their thoughts on what's working and what also can be improved. And I think keeping positive language helps your client to know that they're helping and encouraging you. So what I just said was a way of indicating what's working and what could we improve, or what could be improved. This could be from a formal survey or a casual conversation or even a quick check-in during a session. So when I'm thinking about client, hey, I know we've started this new intervention. EMDR is something that's new for you, and it can be very challenging because it's very different than talk therapy. And I want to be able to make sure I'm checking in that this is still the process that fits with what you want to do related to, somatic healing or mind-body connection. that client then can communicate to me, I really thought this was going to be actively something I wanted to be involved in. And it was great when I did the one area that I wanted to focus on, but I'd really like to get back to maybe talking about some of these issues related to my relationship or my children. And then that way you're having the conversation, but you're also including them and giving you some feedback, because no need to continue a service that isn't working and then that client wants to discontinue with you or doesn't want to engage. And so you can do this in different ways depending on the type of service. Once you're able to gather that feedback and take actions on it, whether it's adjusting your approach, right? So maybe we won't do a EMDR, or a parent, or adding a new service, or for one client, I'm doing trainings, and we were simply doing trainings around leadership for their team. And then they've added leadership coaching as a result of those trainings, because asking them as simple as, do you feel there's more? Do you feel that there's anything more we can do to support your leaders, and or anything that we can improve related to the trainings that we're doing for your leaders? And then just like that, it becomes, oh, you know what? I really was hoping that we could get leadership coaching for the executive team or for the direct care managers. And so really learning how to ask the questions for feedback, and also it helps to add on additional services, or simply being attentive. Sometimes we just notice that something isn't working. Sometimes that means the client isn't showing up, they're not giving you input, they're in the session and not talking. We need to also be okay with accepting the feedback so that we can give satisfactory services, and the client then wants to be loyal and engaged with you and connected to you. So really think about these 3 points: from adding value outside of the session, following up, and getting feedback. Those are 3 areas that will help you to improve your engagement and your connection to your client. I know that I can go on some other journeys related to this one, but I wanted to make sure I stay within the 3 points under each of these, because I can't talk about each of them very long. Once you get to the point of watching these, if you're here, please give me some feedback in terms of what areas you would like to learn specifically about related to small business ownership in the wellness/therapy field. I know that many of my followers themselves may not be specifically in that area, but if you are, please feel free to connect with some questions and or areas that I can guide you with. So there you have it, the powerful strategies of Sharea Farmer related to engaging with our clients and giving them satisfying services, regular follow-up, providing value after or beyond the session, and gathering and implementing client feedback. You got to gather it, but you need to implement it. I forgot to make that point. These strategies may seem very simple, but they are done when done consistently and honoring your client. They can be very transformative in making sure that your client relationship is able to be kept and go beyond even the one-on-one sense. Again, if you haven't already, like and subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, because it helps obviously to get me out there, but also to help other professionals like ourselves. It helps. I'd love to hear again from you if you have any feedback or areas you'd love for me to help or hit on related to clients. But also, if you check out our Monday episodes, which is really dedicated to the emotional success for clients that I serve related to being Black and brown women. And so please feel free to add any comments of engagement that are going to help us grow and improve our services. Y'all take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you live again next Wednesday. Be well.